Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're talking the Warhammer 40k novel Mark of Faith by Rachel Harrison. Following the new format for reviews, first we'll do non-spoilers and scoring, and then for those that have already read it, a little spoiler talk. So with that said, let's just jump straight in. To begin, like normal, let's read the synopsis off the back of the book for a non-spoiler idea of the plot. With the birth of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the Imperium of mankind suffers as never before. Conflict and corruption are rife on every front, and precious little hope remains, save for those who hold to their faith when faced with destruction. Denied a martyr's death during the battle for Ophelia 7, Sister Evangeline of the Order of Our Martyred Lady is blessed with a new and grave duty: to embark on a pilgrimage beyond the Great Rift, to recover a precious and powerful artifact, the Shield of St. Catherine. Accompanied by the enigmatic Inquisitor Rivara, who seeks her own closure in the veiled regions beyond the rift, Evangeline must find a way to bear the weight of this unasked for destiny, if she and her sisters are to succeed in restoring a fragment of light to this new, dark Imperium. Now, first and foremost, I had never read an Adepta Sororita novel before this, so this was really a new experience for me within the lore. Now, the main character, Sister Evangeline, is the driving force of this story, and she's truly a complete character. Now, what I mean by that is that there's no moments within the novel where you're left confused or disconnected by her actions. Her story arc, right from the action-packed beginning, and it really is an action-packed beginning, flows brilliantly, as Evangeline, and thus us the reader, are swept along by events out of her control. It never feels like a reach, and her story has a very natural and organic feel to it. The author Rachel Harrison did a marvellous job of bringing all the Adepta Sororitas to life. Every one of these characters embody everything you'd expect from these devout warrior women. Strong and fearless in the heat of battle, and dedicated in their faith to the God Emperor, yet always remaining relatable, suffering all the quirks and self-doubts as any of us. And it's that strong character telling that carries the bulk of this novel so well. Because without giving too much away here, there's not truly a main villain to play off against for the majority of this novel. More so just chaos itself and the state of the Imperium as a whole. Now, where the lack of a well-written villain can be the demise of most stories, here Rachel Harrison pulls it off with a cast of strong sisters of battle, led by a relatable and even inspirational main character in Evangeline. And it's because of that their journey can carry the story with true tension and anticipation. However, as much as I would like to say it's the perfect novel, it's just not quite there. And unfortunately for me, the side story of Inquisitor Rivara didn't quite draw me in as much as the main storyline, and I found myself hoping for a return back to Evangeline's story as soon as possible. That's not to say the Inquisitor's chapters are bad. I just think Evangeline is such a compelling character that Rivara feels lacking in comparison, especially when you're jumping between the two. Whereas we learn new situations and people along with Evangeline, Rivara by comparison has a whole backstory and cast of characters already in place, and it's simply not as interesting to learn about compared to the strong writing of the Sisters of Battle. Whereas Evangeline's story feels like it's constantly moving, Rivara's feels mired in dreams and flashbacks, only picking up once the two stories combine. But overall, it doesn't detract too much from what is a fantastic story. And like I said, the main storyline more than makes up for any shortcomings, and I would definitely love to see a sequel. So for a score, I will give Mark of Faith a 4 out of 5. A great read or listen, and for this review I read the novel. But that's it for the spoiler-free review. Now a little spoiler talk for those who have already read it. So as we know, Sister Evangeline was the ordinary sister miraculously spared from death at the hands of chaos, seemingly blessed by the God Emperor himself, awakening days later, completely healed, barring strange pale white scars, with one making out the aquila across her eyes, a true sign of the Emperor. And as I said before, it was truly this storyline that made this novel to me, because it was so human. I mean, how would anyone act or feel awakening to this situation? You would feel as confused and full of doubt as much as Evangeline did, and particularly the guilt she harbours is what makes her story so poignant. She lost her sisters, her friends, her mentor, and somehow survived completely unharmed herself. How would anyone not feel completely overwhelmed with guilt? Take the scene, for example, where she is told one of her sisters still lives. The elation she feels is truly heartwarming, only to come crashing down into guilt when she sees a Shava for herself, struggling to even walk. It's this kind of scene that helps us endear to Evangeline's journey so much, because we can all identify with her, despite the circumstances she finds herself in. And on top of all that, she gets thrust into a promotion she never sought or even feels ready for, having to now not only feel pressure from the rest of the convent, but the responsibility that comes with leadership too. And I felt that's where a lot of my enjoyment came from this novel. The evolution of not only Evangeline as she adapted to her new role, but the relationships that came with her leadership too. Having Ashava remain alive, I felt, was a masterstroke, as it keeps Evangeline from becoming too absorbed by the blessing of the Emperor storyline. She remains Evangeline the sister throughout. And the balance of the squad personalities was nicely done too. Although expecting Kyo to end up being the stereotypical disgruntled one, I felt it still worked. And by the end, when Kyo falls to the ground at the hands of the Thousand Sun Sorcerer, I genuinely felt a loss at her death, and was more than glad to learn that she still lived at the end. Speaking of the twist of the Thousand Sun Sorcerer at the end, I felt it was a little disconnected with Evangeline's story, and it was way more connected with Rivara's herself. But having Evangeline herself be the shield all along was a nice enough twist to more than make it work. And I was more than gutted to see Evangeline join the Repentia at the end. I guess it works in the mind of the sisterhood, but there's no denying she was the hero throughout the entire novel. I certainly hope we get a follow-up in the near future, and we follow Evangeline as she redeems herself before ultimately reclaiming her spot as Sister Superior, as I really feel these characters are deserving of a sequel, let alone a series. And the question of what was wrong with Rivara for me? Well, there's not much I can say that I didn't sum it up in the non-spoilers. Her story simply felt slow and ponderous compared to that of Evangeline's, and the danger you have when using a group of pre-established relationships and characters is getting the reader to buy in, and I just didn't with any of Rivara's characters. Perhaps it's just me, but I felt the attempt at making Rivara a feared inquisitor and yet also involved in an emotional love story just didn't quite hit the mark. I think it may have been better served trying to focus on one or the other rather than combining both. because by the end of her story I really didn't care who lived or died from her chapters. It just missed that something to really draw me in. So if we're ever treated to a sequel, I would love to see it split between Evangeline, now with the Repentia, and Ashava, now as the Sister Superior, as both of them try to adapt to their new roles, before hopefully, yes, redeeming and reuniting at the end, because these two characters and stories would definitely work perfectly together, reuniting the cast of characters that we have come to love. I've no idea if a follow-up will ever happen, but I certainly think the author Rachel Harrison deserves the chance to do so, because overall she delivered a great read. But as always guys, what did you think of it? Have you read it? What was your opinion of it? And what score out of 5 would you give it? Did you enjoy Evangeline's story as much as me? Or perhaps did you prefer the chapters led by Rivara? As always, drop your thoughts in the comments below, I love to read them. A huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support really means a lot to me, it truly does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.